So in this video, we are going head to head, the Garmin Force versus the Lowrance Ghost. Currently, these two brushless motors are the top two products on the market, and we'll cover everything from how loud these two units are to the pros and cons of each, because one is certainly better than the other. I'll also go into an ongoing warranty issue that I've got with one of these products, so let's get into it. Rightio, so from the outset, there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to both of these units. In my opinion, one of them is really strong and suited for one type of angler, and the other one is strong in another area and suited for another type of angler. So in this video, we're going to cut through all that sponsorship messaging that you might see and talk about the facts, so that you can make an informed decision on which item is best suited for you. As you know, both of these units are at the top of their game. The motors are very much designed to integrate with your full boatload of electronics, whether that's your graphs up the front or down the back, your navigation systems like your Point 1, your live imaging that each brand offers, and obviously your main motor as well. If you're not aware, both Garmin and Lowrance have apps that will go onto your phone and you can muck around and control your units as well. Now, whilst we'll touch on the advantages and disadvantages of both, we'll also quickly touch on the integration, and I'll leave this video with my recommendation as to, if I was to have my time again, which of these two units I would choose. So with all that in mind, let's get into it. Now, firstly, I ran both the Garmin Force and the Lowrance Ghost for 9 months each. With those units up the front of the Phoenix, we matched them with the live imaging technology from either one of those companies, whether it was the Active Target or the Live Scope. And we put those on the shaft of the motor and accompanied those with graphs on the bow. Now, whichever one you go with, I was really happy to see that both the Lowrance and the Garmin are built really solid and fit really well at the front of the boat. The Lowrance is even designed to be stood on in this area here, and if you're limited for deck space, you might find that as a slight advantage. Over the testing period, I was never really worried about the motors coming off. The bolt pattern up the front worked really well, and you might have seen it with some older units, how you get some play in the unit if you move it around. With these things, they're pretty solid. There was no movement at all, and when they were installed correctly, they were very much part of the boat. I did also use both of these units in salt water, which is what they're warranted for, with the caveat that Lowrance won't let you go outside of the heads or outside of a river system into open ocean. You can use it in that brackish estuary where you have a combination of both salt water and fresh water, but in terms of warranty, you don't really want to be going outside of the heads, or at least you're just not covered by the warranty if you do that with the Lowrance. So specifically at the end of the 9-month period, there was definitely a difference between one product to the other in terms of general wear and tear. There were definitely more visible wear marks on the Garmin. Basically, any parts that were moving or rubbing on the Garmin, they didn't fare as well cosmetically as the Lowrance, which was a little bit surprising, but realistically, it was only cosmetic. On the Garmin front, in terms of performance, I did actually lose the side scan imaging around about a month after getting the unit itself. Now, I was later told by a rep that the transducer on the front of the nose cone can be quite fragile, so you do need to take care of it a little bit more. Now, I didn't have that with the Lowrance. The Lowrance suffered an absolute beating. I probably used it twice as much in the shallow water against rocks and salt and structure, such as the nature of fishing here in Australia, but I didn't lose the image on the Lowrance like I did on the Garmin. I am about to sell this boat and the unit as well, so they'll be getting a brand new transducer with it, but it's just something to consider. I found that transducer a little bit more fragile than the Lowrance. The other thing in this space that the Lowrance had over Garmin was the latch system that you use to deploy and redeploy the motor at the front. I found that around about 6 months in using it in salt, that the Garmin release system did get quite stiff, and sometimes I had to use a little bit of extra force to make that latch move. To get around that, I did hit the area with some silicone spray, and that has definitely helped the unit deploy. While we're looking at the Garmin in the close-ups as well, you can definitely see that I did put this unit through some torture. It did get banged up pretty bad, and you can see there's chips off the front of the prop, and I'll come back to that, but you'll see this mini skeg here that sits on there has got a permanent bend that bends downward, and that's something for you to look out for, because that was actually caused by the travel cover. Whenever I put the travel cover on the boat, the cover would actually push down on that mini skeg that is malleable and actually permanently put a bend in it. I do like the idea here though from Garmin that that part and the prop obviously are replaceable. There's just a few different bolts there that you can have a look at here. Just unscrew those and screw new ones in when you need it. To come back to the Lowrance, over the trial period, I didn't really feel that the Lowrance degraded as much cosmetically or in terms of performance with those latches as the Garmin did. The one major thing though that you do need to look out for with the Lowrance Ghost is the bearing here that's exposed halfway down the main shaft. It's an exposed bearing that helps whenever you're trying to steer the lower half of the unit. But I did have to work pretty hard with grease to try and keep the moisture out, particularly in salt water. When I did sell the unit around about 9 months in, I did notice some pitting, some corrosion that had started on the face of that bearing. I'd say if there was like one major weak point in the Lowrance, it's probably that bearing. If they come out with a version 2 in a few years' time, it'd be really nice to see that bearing enclosed somehow so that it's protected from the elements. So in terms of wear and tear and performance, both I would say are at equal playing fields. Now, that's not the case, definitely not the case with noise. This is the first of 2 major points that are big differences between both of the units. In terms of noise, the Garmin Force is significantly quieter than the Lowrance, not only on the steering head motor, but the propeller motor as well. Now, I don't think there's an argument there. It's well been covered on YouTube videos, but the Garmin is super, super quiet. And through my experience after using the units, I will say that the Garmin started quiet. It did get slightly louder, but it stayed quiet. The Lowrance was, noticeably louder to start with and did also get slightly louder. 9 months later, it was definitely louder than what it was when we started. And honestly, I think that says a lot about the Garmin because you can see the state of the propeller. There's natural wash. The propeller's going to be working harder. It's less efficient than what it was 9 months ago, yet it's still making no noise. The so what to you or me, the fisherman, is that if you're an angler where noise signature is important and you need to remain quiet in the water, well then the Garmin is going to be the unit that you should favor. So 100% it is a clear choice. If you're looking for quietness only, the Garmin Force is definitely the one to beat. Now, I should say, if you do go with the Lowrance, you're still going to be happy. Both of these units are brushed motors. So if you're moving from an old school motor or you're moving up into this realm, then both of them are going to be quieter than what you have experienced and what you're expecting. It's just that Garmin have done so well with the Force and it is super quiet. Now, I haven't seen this covered before, but the second major point of difference is the user interface and how a fisherman integrates with their unit. And it is the second big point of difference between Garmin and Lowrance. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is the remotes and the foot pedals and how much you enjoy using those interfaces to interact with your electric motor. So firstly, the Garmin remote is absolutely outstanding. It's a pleasure to use, and you can tell that Garmin have experience with this type of gadget. Think Garmin watches and small electronics. They've been in that game for so long. The remote itself is waterproof, so if you've got it around your neck and you fall into the water, no big deal. So if you are a remote guy, I think you'll enjoy the Garmin remote. 5 stars from me. It's an outstanding piece of equipment. On the other hand, if you are a foot pedal guy, prepared to be disappointed. There's no real nice way of saying that this item is the weakest link in the Garmin suite, and I cannot recommend you purchase it. To quantify that comment, from an engineering perspective, you basically have 2 pieces of plastic attached together on a hinge. What that means to you is that it's almost impossible to be consistently precise, and you need to work much harder to control the unit than you do with the Lowrance. You don't have that precision. To show you what I mean, if I push here with a force with my hand, I get nothing. If I increase the force, I get nothing again, and then I increase more, I eventually get to a force where the pedal just folds away. In Garmin's defense, it's probably something they wouldn't notice unless they are using all the different models on the market. So if you're stuck using the Garmin constantly, you're probably going to get used to it. But it's no exaggeration when I say after using the Lowrance Ghost foot pedal, the Garmin Force foot pedal feels like a kid's toy car that my kids would play with. It costs $2. That's just made out of 2 bits of plastic that are put together. It's really for such a top-end product, probably the most disappointing thing about it. The so what for an angler is that if using your pedal or your foot is the primary method that you have gotten used to control your boat, well then, it's hard to recommend the Garmin. Secondly, on the Garmin pedal, there's also an issue with the button arrangements on the pedal. In particular, this button here at the bottom, it's a north-up button. It's a button that I really found redundant and didn't use at all, but unfortunately because of its position, I found myself tapping it all the time. It was really annoying. So I went onto YouTube to find a number of videos that actually provided workarounds, and I went with the cable tie method that you can see here. By wrapping a cable tie around the button, then the button can't be pressed. Problem solved. Now that's the Garmin out of the way. The Lowrance foot pedal though is another thing altogether. It is an absolute pleasure to use. Small forces in the foot pedal mean really small movements, and the pedal sits a really nice angle and has a bucket load of features in terms of buttons that are reversible and programmable. So you can control your power poles, for example. The pedal itself feels spring assisted, and it just feels much better under the foot and commands all the little minute movements that you need. I guess the so what to that is that if you're a foot pedal guy, well then you're gonna be thinking about Lowrance. Just the way that that foot pedal interfaces with you, the buttons on there, the way that the foot pedal moves and how precise it can be, it's much more, or it's much further ahead than its counterpart. I guess if I look back at my experience, in particular on the bad weather days, I never needed to get on my hands and knees and steer with my hands with the Lowrance. You can see that I'm doing that here with the Garmin, and that tells a tale. So if I look at it that way, 1 point to Garmin for the noise and 1 point to Lowrance for the user interface. Now, while I talk about service, I'm going to show you some footage of the units on the water. But in terms of customer service, I found Navico here in Australia, who own Lowrance, responded well to emails and had some great information that I was able to include in a Lowrance review video that went on the channel. And I'll link that up in the top corner here. They were really engaging through the process and really forward-leaning with their post-sale support. I even had a message or three from the guys who were curious on the experience that I was having, and honestly were great and accommodating. I actually had a recent situation where I was staying with a Lowrance Pro angler who had a unit fail on them while we were interstate. I remember listening to him get on the phone, speak to Lowrance, who then organized an overnight shipment of a brand new unit. I then spent most of that night helping him re-rig that unit onto his boat. But I guess it goes to show that holistic approach to my experience of that Lowrance brand and how forward-leaning they were to help when things went wrong. My experience with Garmin Australia was different, not necessarily bad, but it was definitely different. At the end of the trial period for the Lowrance, and I was trying to organize a Garmin Force, I was actually left high and dry a number of times in terms of emails, and I got no response from them. But I was asking for information that I could share with you guys in a review, and unfortunately I got no response to those emails. We actually went through the side channels and went through another retailer and a small business, and those guys got stonewalled as well. So for that reason, I haven't actually done a specific Garmin Force review. Some of you may know this that follow me on social media, but you'll know that I actually had a failure of the unit and a failure for the steering head to rotate. Over the phone, I logged the job with Garmin, and I also went through my tournament network back channels to be told that I would get a call back. I actually waited 2.5 hours at the boat ramp for a call back, but unfortunately I didn't get a call, and I just salvaged the day by going live on a live stream and manually moving the motor head around, which is a little bit embarrassing, but it is what it is. I will say though, whilst Garmin were slow to get back to me, when they did get back to me, their service was outstanding. So they're actually flying someone down from Brisbane to here to sail in Gippsland, which is going to be a 2-hour flight to Melbourne and then a 3-hour drive into country Victoria to fix my unit next week. To be honest, I'm pretty amazed with Garmin and that response. It's definitely flattering, but I was expecting for the unit to be shipped up, sent away, wait 3 weeks, and then for it to be sent back and then have to reinstall it myself. Considering they're sending somebody down to do that, I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. And I think objectively, if I consider that I broke my unit 1 week ago and now they're sending somebody down to get fixed, well, it just tells me that that's probably okay. To have something get turned around in 1 week, I think is exceptional, actually. Now, I need to give credit where credit is due. From the outset, both staff or pro anglers, whatever you want to call them, sponsored anglers that represent both Garmin and Lowrance on the water, both of them have been absolutely outstanding. Even to the point where, you know, after I'd switched to Garmin and I didn't have the Lowrance on the boat anymore, but this new update had happened on the Lowrance, one of the guys said, you know, jump over onto my boat, check out this new 360 scan that they've got on the Lowrance, and he spoke me through it. From my experience, the pro staff on both sides were exceptional. So to wrap this up, in terms of speed, networking, capabilities, and all the extra little things that come with both of these units, both of them are at the top of their game and are basically on par. I think the thing that you need to decide on, or we need to decide on as anglers, is what is important to us. If you want the quietest motor and you don't mind using a hand remote, well then Garmin is going to be the clear-cut option for you, particularly with their live scope technology. They're up to like version 3 or 4 with that stuff, and the image is crystal clear. If, however, you're happy to sacrifice just a little bit of that sound for user interface in that foot pedal, then the foot pedal is definitely the way to go if that's your primary method of controlling your boat. And when I look back on it, in my experience, the Lowrance was definitely more enjoyable to use. I think on my new boat, I'll probably look at either a Minn Kota or going back to Lowrance, depending on where the tech is out and what's coming out in the States and mapping and a whole bunch of other different things. But I would love to give Minn Kota a go after using both the Garmin and the Lowrance. Look, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Stay safe. Until next time, I'll see you around.